In 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, certainly I have not had the opportunity to contribute on some of the matters that were raised earlier from the debate. But what I do want to certainly do is to congratulate the minister who sits in another place, Dr. Peets, and the Ministry of Youth, Culture, and Sport, and the Department of Culture, certainly on a successful Bermuda Day celebration a week ago. Mr. Speaker, I know I saw you bright and early in the morning, doing what you have done for many years, presenting the Youth Awards for the youth races. And certainly the day was a great day for all involved. And it felt really good to be back. And it's kind of like the feeling I remember it was almost when we were at last year's first county game in the East, and people just felt as though if things were coming back. And of course, we know what we went through in 2021 with the Delta variant and other things after that. But now, Mr. Speaker, it feels as though if we've—I don't want to say turned the corner, but slowly regaining a normality to the types of things of which we were used to doing. And certainly, Dr. Pete's team worked incredibly hard so that we could celebrate our heritage throughout the month of May, and certainly culminating on Bermuda Day. And I think what's most important is that the theme this year was togetherness. And togetherness is not an easy concept, Mr. Speaker, because we are a country of many different people, many different thoughts, many different opinions, many different backgrounds, many different social strata. And it's difficult to demonstrate togetherness, but I think it's important that we recognize that on holidays such as Bermuda Day and other holidays, it is a time for us to demonstrate our togetherness and to demonstrate the fact that we can come together to celebrate who we are, despite the differences and despite the challenges, certainly that we as a country do have. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to speak on the travel authorization process. The Minister of Health has advised me that she is at an appointment with her, with a member of her family. So I'm not going to speak on that, but I'm sure the Minister will certainly address those issues the next time the House is sitting. And I would certainly welcome and invite the honorable members opposite to reach out to the Minister of Health directly to get a briefing and an update on what exactly is taking place with the travel authorizations. Because the one thing I will say is, Mr. Speaker, is that we are committed to excellent customer service, and we're going to make sure that we do better and better. And the vast majority of persons who travel to Bermuda do not have a challenge. But what I will say is that we want to make sure that there are less and less persons that have a challenge. But the teams that work to process the travel authorizations, the teams that work on our borders, there are numerous emails that I get on a daily basis, premier.gov.bm, praising the team, thanking the team, recognizing our protocols, and certainly recognizing the fact that the process in Bermuda is a smooth and a seamless one in most cases and instances. There are spaces where we can do better, but as I said, I will let the Minister of Health address the members of the Honorable House next week on these particular matters, and I invite honorable members opposite to go ahead and to follow up certainly with the Minister responsible for health, Mr. Speaker. What I do want to close on, Mr. Speaker, and I think that it's important, and what I do say is, Mr. Speaker, is that elections certainly do matter. And not to reflect, Mr. Speaker, but every single time that we have come to this House of Assembly, this session, this government has delivered on election promises. We laid out an economic recovery plan, and we are delivering on our economic recovery plan. Yesterday, the Minister of Economy and Labor announced a youth employment strategy, Mr. Speaker. And this was a promise that was made in our election manifesto and something that formed a part of the economic recovery plan. We are delivering on what we said. And Mr. Speaker, I will give the opposition credit, because what the opposition does not say anymore is, how are they delivering on the plan? Because they can see week in and week out the work that this government is doing in keeping its promises. Earlier today with the Energy Regulatory Sandbox, Mr. Speaker, another aspect of this government's economic recovery plan. which was delivered in this House by the Honorable Deputy Premier, who is renowned around the Caribbean and now being known around the world as a leading spokesperson on the future of energy, the protection of oceans, the protection of the environment, Mr. Speaker, because that is the space in which this government is living, Mr. Speaker. And so the execution of these initiatives, Mr. Speaker, is testament that this is not just words. These aren't just things which are put out in the public. These are actually promises that we have made and promises, Mr. Speaker, that we are delivering on. I am looking forward to coming back to the House in 2 weeks, where there is going to be more items that we have promised that we will continue to deliver on for the people of this country, Mr. Speaker. I do want to certainly touch on the matter related to the youth employment initiative, Mr. Speaker, because I was incredibly disappointed, I will say, with the coverage in the daily newspaper. And the reason why I will say that I was incredibly disappointed with the coverage in the daily newspaper, Mr. Speaker, is because this. For some reason, Mr. Speaker, there was a view that what was revealed yesterday in some way, shape, or form was news that had never been shared before. And so, Mr. Speaker, let me just share that it was decided that when the pandemic hit, to have a labor force survey so that we could actually see and understand what was taking place, Mr. Speaker. And in 2020, late 2020, November 2020, we commissioned a labor force survey. What I want to make clear to honorable members, Mr. Speaker, is that in May 2019, the labor force survey measured youth unemployment at 24. In November 2019, youth unemployment had fallen to 18%. In November of 2020, after the onset of the pandemic, which was clearly understood, Mr. Speaker, youth unemployment rose up to 32%, Mr. Speaker. Now, this was reported in this Honorable House. It was reported by a press conference, and it was also reported by the daily newspaper, Mr. Speaker. So imagine my surprise that the report from the newspaper makes it seem as though this is something new that has been revealed. It is not something new that has been revealed, Mr. Speaker. It was in the public domain in this House. It was in the public domain in a press conference by the Minister of Economy and Labor. And, Mr. Speaker, the World Gazette even wrote a story about this survey a year ago. So here we find the coverage today, Mr. Speaker, saying that the government has admitted, the government has revealed. This is stuff that is inside of the public domain. But what is important to know, Mr. Speaker, is recognize problem. What will you do about the problems? And, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen is the government doing something about the issues with the National Youth Employment Strategy, Mr. Speaker. So my hope is that members of the media who seek to educate will seek to educate and not play gotcha. Because the fact is that the exact same newspaper published the exact same statistics a year ago. So let's not focus on the fact that youth unemployment in Bermuda has increased after the pandemic. Because unemployment has increased after the pandemic, Mr. Speaker, and that is the reason why we have an economic recovery plan. But the one thing that can be said is that the economy is coming back. People are getting back to work, and we're going to continue to execute on our economic recovery plan, making sure that we build and deliver and continue to create opportunities for young and not so young inside this economy, Mr. Speaker. That is what our focus has been. Our focus has been on dealing with the issues that matter to the people of this country. And the one thing that I'll close with, Mr. Speaker, is that we will not be to make sure that we take care of the people of whom we serve, Mr. Speaker. Look at this government. We have frozen gasoline prices. Understand, Mr. Speaker, when gasoline prices in the United States of America are rising to record levels, Mr. Speaker, we have not had an increase in the price of gasoline since February. 4 months, Mr. Speaker. People around the world cannot say that, but that is this government acting on matters which matter to the everyday Bermudian, dealing with issues of the cost of living, Mr. Speaker. And there's more measures that will come dealing with these particular matters, Mr. Speaker. So we are not going to be deterred. We are not going to be distracted, and we are going to state what the facts are, and this government will continue to execute on the initiatives of which we've laid out, Mr. Speaker. And I would hope that members of the media who have a responsibility to inform will try to make sure they take that responsibility to inform seriously. With that, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Thank you, members, for your contribution today. Trust that you all